Hey everybody, this game started off very textbook and conservative, but in the end game, I saw some interesting attacks that blew up the game in my favor. I'm playing the black pieces, started off pretty standard Sicilian defense. We're both just developing pieces and trying to castle. This is the first interesting move where it looks like he's trying to blow up the center, but it does come at the cost of destabilizing his kingside castle, and that'll come into play later. I go ahead and put pressure on his knight by pinning it. Now if we have an exchange on f4, he can't recapture with the knight, but instead he just aggressively pushes his pawn. I'm happy to castle. Here it looks like he's trying to trap my bishop because if I retreat to h5, he can push this pawn and then I have no escape squares. But even if that happened, I probably could have traded this bishop in exchange for these two pawns and bringing my knight onto g4, and that might have actually been pretty good in my favor. Instead though, I play it conservative. I've just traded pieces, and I try and start a queenside pawn push, but I neglected that this pawn was not defended by anything, so he could just grab it with the knight if he wanted to. Instead, he doesn't see it either, so he does that curious move. I just continue my pawn push. He goes for this aggressive outpost. I don't want to trade my bishop for a knight, so I go ahead and I do this exchange instead. I am actually pretty happy about that because now my bishop is kind of freed up on this diagonal. I go ahead and claim the aggressive outpost myself, gaining a tempo because he's going to have to move his queen. When he moves it here though, I notice that this pawn is undefended, so I just grab the free material. He's going to have to move his rook, and I just re-centralize. So at this stage of the game, I'm feeling pretty good. These two pawns are disconnected from his other pawn islands, and they're doubled up, and I just overall feel a little bit more secure in my castle than I think he does with his. So he links his rooks up and develops his bishop. That's pretty solid. I respond with my pawn push. I was a little surprised he did this exchange, but I'm happy to do it because now it's really locked this pawn into place. That's not going to go anywhere, and considering that his only remaining bishop is the white bishop, I feel like he's pretty choked off. So he tries to centralize. I like the idea of keeping his bishop locked in, so I push this pawn. So now these two pawns aren't going anywhere, and this bishop isn't doing very much. He gets aggressive with his queen, and I continue my pawn push on my queen side. You know, we're just basically keeping our attacks going. Here I'm kind of threatening, what if I bring my queen into the back line, maybe trying to bring it over this way into some sort of attack. I expect he's just going to push me off the file, but he doesn't because he continues his attack. So I throw this check. I thought he would probably back up into this row, but instead he goes deeper into the woods, and I think that's going to cost him a little bit later. So I keep my queen. I'm trying to basically sneak it around the back way to have it be in an aggressive posture. That move doesn't do very much. I guess he's thinking the G file and the H file are going to be where he's going to have his checkmating chances. So not terrible. I throw another check, mostly just to buy a tempo, and when he pushes me out, I go here, which is honestly overly aggressive and doesn't really do very much. He kicks me out, and that's totally fine. So I bring my queen back. I'm feeling safe. I've made him lose a little bit of time. No harm, no foul. This pawn push is pretty aggressive, and now all of his threats are getting a little bit closer to my king than I'd like, but at this stage I also view it where I have more pieces covering the g5 square than he does, so I'm happy to do the trade. He grabs, I grab, and at this stage I feel like my bishop is a little bit more active, but I need to be careful because if he pushes this pawn, all of a sudden he'll have that discovered attack with his bishop and a very real checkmate threat on h7. So when he brings over his rook, I have that very much in mind, and I probably could have just brought my bishop back to f6 to really prevent this pawn from going anywhere, but instead I get cute and I bring my bishop to this very aggressive position with the idea that I'm threatening to bring my queen over to h2, which isn't checkmate, but it does put a ton of pressure on his king. He tries to block it by bringing his rook over here, which yes, that does block the threat on h2, but now I can go back with my queen, and now I'm threatening to bring my queen over to h1, which isn't checkmate, but it's pretty nasty. And also, I am pinning this rook. If he moves his rook anywhere, I'm going to be able to grab his queen for free, and I believe that is checkmate if I do that. Instead, he brings his queen over here, which ends up being a losing error. That's the game, because now when I bring my queen over here, he has no way of blocking it other than with his rook, but then I just recapture with the queen, and that's checkmate. So yeah, the game started off a little bit conservative and textbook, but at the end, I liked bringing my queen back into this back line, and it paid off with this kind of cute checkmate that we ended up with. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comment section what you thought of this game, and hope to see you all in the next one.